Wendell revealed a satisfied smile, as it was all a joke. From the beginning, Rual had no one by his side, and Wendell never considered him a teammate. Rual became a joke to all the people he loved and trusted most. This betrayal was too much for Rual to accept. Now, to Wendell, Rual was no longer the strongest hero in the world but the stupidest. This revelation shocked the public, who didn't know whom to believe anymore. But it seemed Wendell had prepared for this situation and used his venomous tongue to spew nonsense. With his handsome face, he won the hearts of the people and made them believe his words. But this was not the end of the play. Next, we would see what Christiana had done in the past, and Rual would expose this truth for the public to witness. Christiana was brought here by Rual, a real person in a real situation. However, her first statement was a firm denial of betraying Rual. Yet, these words seemed like mere child's talk to Rual, who paid no heed to them. It was Christiana who orchestrated everything behind the scenes, manipulating the actions of the princess. Moreover, it wasn't even her working hours, so there was no need for her to act so innocently charming. At that moment, Christiana revealed her true, lustful nature as she looked at Rual with covetous eyes. Perhaps he saw through Christiana's past, but to her, that perception was perversely endearing. The saintly lady had used her power to bewitch the princess with her twisted tales of love. She aimed to claim Rual for herself, and when her plans failed, she descended into madness. Although initially rejected by the princess, the saintly lady, with her seductive voice, ultimately achieved her goal. Sandra sensed the trouble and tried to pull the saintly lady away, but she persisted in her delusions. She kept insisting that the princess and Raoul were meant for each other. If Rual refused, the saintly lady had ways to make him return to the princess. These smooth words suggested that all the princess's actions were orchestrated by the saintly lady. Now, with the current situation, the hero was gaining popularity and gradually taking the princess's place. But killing him would drive the public into a frenzy, so the princess had to turn her enemy into a friend. She decided to call the hero and gradually figure out how to bind Rual so that he couldn't leave her side. The saintly lady advised the princess to strip Rual of his hero status and turn him into her own pet. Rual wouldn't be able to live without the princess, and she would naturally become the most powerful in the kingdom. The thought of Rual chained at her feet delighted both the perverted princess and the saintly lady, like bliss above the clouds. Victoria couldn't help but be overwhelmed by her own imagination upon hearing this. The princess decided to fully succumb to the saintly lady's seduction, disregarding right and wrong. She instructed Sandra to quickly find out about everyone related to Rual and bring them to her. She was determined to possess Rual at any cost, even if it meant sacrificing anything. For it was this very affair that marked the beginning of Rual's misfortune, as well as that of the innocent people. These words, exposed before the public, sent the princess into a panic, and she screamed loudly, attempting to drown out Rual's words. Rual thought the princess was just afraid of the truth, but it turned out she wanted to twist reality, claiming those things were false fabrications. The princess rejoiced, having a nun by her side, which was the weak point of dark magic. Rual, finally amused, noticed that the princess was now fighting back instead of passively enduring the situation. For the princess, understanding Rual's nature was just a matter of spending some time, so it wasn't challenging at all. What could instantly paralyze Rual was the holy magic, the purifying power only wielded by nuns. The princess was proud to have discovered this while Rual was still running around engaging in futile actions. Now, the princess would step forward, taking responsibility for rescuing the kingdom and helping the people to move freely again. Rual found the princess's smug expression amusingly ironic. The princess commanded the holy woman to quickly bring Rual back to forgetfulness once more. This time, she would watch him decay and ensure Rual could never return. But before the plan could start, Christiana bluntly refused the princess, not wanting to be labeled a traitor. This made the princess plummet from cloud 9 to a deep abyss. Victoria's smile froze, and she stood there, petrified. It turned out that all this was because the king had spoken to the holy woman. Originally, he wanted to keep the princess as she was just a regular daughter, but now, things had changed. She was so unrestrained that she hunted and harmed the king's close servants, so the idea of disowning the princess wasn't surprising. The princess couldn't believe these words from the holy woman and didn't know how to react. She shook her head in denial, unable to accept the truth. But if she wouldn't believe, Rual decided to enlighten her. Her father had given the holy woman an item to prove his intention to remove his daughter from the kingdom. The holy woman eagerly searched for this item to show the princess and validate her words. A letter with the royal seal, only found in the king's room, was placed in the princess's hands. She couldn't believe this was true, and now everything was revealed, leaving Victoria with no power to wreak havoc anymore. This revelation also left the subjects below in shock, as the princess had always been dearly pampered by the king. The contents of the letter overwhelmed Victoria with emotion. Her unattractive face upon realizing that she would have to use her life to appease the hero's wrath was evident. The king warned her not to die a useless woman. Therefore, he would grant her a meaningful death as atonement to the hero, and moreover, she should thank the king for such a decision. Enraged, the princess ordered the knights to quickly capture the hero and the holy woman. But no one moved, still pondering whether to believe the king's words. The princess claimed it was all a fabrication, but with that seal, no one could help her anymore. Her clear uselessness left Victoria embarrassed before her subjects, holding her head in despair. Now, she seemed like a madwoman, a spectacle for the onlookers. She ran to grab Rual's neck, laughing loudly, believing her father couldn't possibly do this. She was the king's only child, without her, his lineage would end. She had truly done everything, no matter how reckless, to ascend to that position. All her actions, whether noble or vile, were ultimately to ascend the throne. She dreamed of becoming the first queen of the kingdom, where no one would dare oppose or argue with her. Rual, without a hint of pity, pushed her to the floor, turning the scene into an ugly spectacle. She sat growling on the ground like a rabid dog. Despite this, she didn't forget her vow to tear Rual into 100 pieces. Rual was curious how she would do that, knowing that soon she would have to use her life to soothe his spirit. The king would hear from Rual right away, and by then, Victoria would be nothing but a name. While Victoria clung to the reason that she was the only child, the truth was finally laid bare. The king actually had 3 more princesses, so losing Victoria meant nothing to him. To him, protecting the absolute safety of his royal reputation was the utmost priority. Even sacrificing a useless daughter was a small price to pay. Without further ado, Rual decided to end this interesting play here and bring down a terrifying punishment. Rual's direct words struck Victoria like lightning, bringing her back to reality, leaving her with no hope at all. The king had long known of Victoria's schemes and had been spreading his seed throughout the kingdom. She was never considered by him when it came to passing on his authority. The princess found herself in this predicament with no one to save her. This was indeed a unique and strange tale in the kingdom of Kurz, a one-of-a-kind fate for a princess. She was always praised as the kingdom's treasure, not only beautiful but also gentle and graceful. But now, was she ever truly loved as she portrayed herself to be? Rual was curious how the princess felt being betrayed by those she trusted the most. When all her relatives turned their backs, even pushing her to death for their own benefits. All that she had enjoyed until now was nothing but illusions she had created for herself. The people below were surprised to see her true face. They had obeyed and praised her only because Victoria was the king's daughter. From the beginning, they saw her as nothing good and utterly despicable. The princess sat among the subjects, hearing their terrifying condemnations directly. She couldn't understand and never expected to be turned against like this. But after everything, there was still one person who spoke up wanting to save her, Sandra. She was truly mad, obsessed with her love for the princess, using her last strength to crawl onto the stage. The princess, terrified, wanted to back away, but she couldn't order the knights to capture Sandra anymore. They despised the princess because of her they had committed many contemptible acts and faced punishment. Sandra dragged herself onto the stage, not forgetting to carry a large sword, wishing to join the princess in eternal oblivion. Sandra decided to liberate the princess, ignoring Victoria's desperate pleas. A sword thrust into Victoria's abdomen caused her to cough up blood, but she was still alive, gasping for air. If the princess didn't die, Sandra would use a dagger to end her own life first. She would go to heaven first to wait for the princess, finally fulfilling her wish to be with her. Rual found this scene immensely entertaining. Who could have guessed things would turn out so dramatically? Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, he now moved to punish those present. They were nothing but demons in human guise, beyond any further consideration. Rual joyfully sang that he wouldn't let Victoria die so easily. He planned to find a place where everyone could see and hang her there. The villagers would witness this openly and clearly. He took the princess to the top of a mountain with a giant wooden cross. This masterpiece would be named the Princess Crucified Under the Moonlight. He wouldn't let her die easily, she must slowly feel the excruciating pain. Rual realized he had adopted a romanticism he wasn't aware of before, but that wasn't a bad thing. He decided to summon a pack of large wolves, along with maggots or even crows and hawks. He would let Victoria experience the ultimate pain as she was literally devoured. Wolves would tear her apart from below, leaving the upper parts for rats and wriggling insects. Her eyes would be taken by crows and hawks, but she wouldn't die, enduring that pain while still alive. He also thought of bringing the general here to suffer, but hadn't had the chance yet. Around him lay body parts large and small of those he had slain. They deserved this punishment, a retribution for their deeds. But still, his collection had many empty spaces for faces yet to appear. Next, Rual planned to visit the demon slave camp of the Kingdom of Curs. Children brought there were brainwashed and turned into decorative objects. The possessions of the captives were stripped away, and the process of categorizing the merchandise for different price ranges began. Wendell left in disgust, showing no fear when mentioning Rual. He believed that being Rual's close friend meant he could do anything without Rual harming him. He departed, leaving the unfortunate children behind, uncaring of the consequences, as long as his pockets were filled with money. Meanwhile, in a large arena in Curs, a terrifying spectacle was unfolding. Gladiators fought and slaughtered each other, and the person leisurely enjoying this scene from the throne was Rual. Despite the bloodshed, it seemed he was still not fully satisfied, indicating his lack of contentment. This marked the beginning of a rebellion of the demon slaves, a true and terrifying war against the Kingdom of Curs. At the Curs castle, a bizarre event is unfolding. Rual strides confidently into the king's chamber, invited by the monarch himself. His entrance is met with a respect from the guards that starkly contrasts their previous demeanor when the princess was in power. The king has gone to great lengths to orchestrate a blood-drenched spectacle for Rual's amusement. However, such displays are not enough for Rual, he takes it upon himself to teach them the true meaning of massacre. The performance features soldiers who, alongside General Brown, had ravaged villages. Whether directly or indirectly responsible, all are destined for execution. Yet, for the king, there is no pride in this, as Rual represents cold-blooded brutality. Meanwhile, at the border, a self-proclaimed hero is on a demon-hunting quest. Lately, Rual has been indulging in leisure at the capital, making such news rather surprising. However, this doesn't mean Rual is unaware of these developments, he simply doesn't see anything wrong with them. At this moment, the bald minister Alcott enters, suggesting that reaching a conclusion now seems premature. The royal family is yet to determine whether the impersonator is mimicking Rual to intimidate the populace or if it is indeed Rual himself. But before he finishes, a rope suddenly loops around his neck, causing him to stagger and fall. The king not only scolds him but also bows an apology to Rual for the prime minister's rash words. These impersonation incidents may be linked to Wendell, currently running a small workshop. He is at the seaport with a woman named Cameron, who owns a large transportation business. The king wants to eliminate them but needs someone to assist in the task. Rual warns the king not to overstep, as they are also his next targets. After speaking his piece, Rual swiftly departs to pursue his personal vendetta without delay. The border port city of Tord, within Curs territory and formerly under demonic rule, is facing a grim reality. Emaciated and frail children, imprisoned in dark dungeons, are dragged out. Their cries of agony only seem to delight a wicked woman nearby, eager to taste their tears. Beside her stands the cruel jailer, relentlessly whipping the weeping children. But these demon children are so undervalued that they're treated carelessly, even to the point of death without any concern. At this moment, the Rual imposter intervenes to stop this and demands the woman to take him to Wendell. It's unbelievable that a hero and a great wizard would engage in such despicable acts. However, the fake Rual declares that he's experienced a good life but hasn't been treated properly, hence his decision to stop being good. On the way to Wendell's room, the imposter excuses himself to use the restroom, then dashes in and vomits profusely. Suddenly, a voice resounds. It's none other than the real Rual greeting them. The imposter, pale-faced, is baffled by what's happening. Terrified upon encountering the real Rual, he knows his deception is about to be exposed. Rual objectively comments that the impersonation was quite convincing, but the imposter needs more practice on his signature phrase of cursing the world. He might mimic the appearance, but his power is less than 1% of Rual's. Realizing his plight, the imposter continuously bows, insisting he did it all just for money. He admits to collaborating with Wendell and Allingham for mere survival. He threatens them into partnership, desperately bowing and saying he would do anything Rual wants, just to be spared. His fear is so pronounced that he even promptly kneels to lick Rual's shoes, praising their taste. Rual, laughing painfully, assures him that he won't kill him, as he is not a serial killer. But the imposter's purpose wasn't just money, he also sought revenge. Despite his excuses, Rual sees right through his thoughts. Yet, Rual offers to help him with his revenge. Rual takes him to a fantastical region to enjoy some exquisite black tea. Once seated, Rual boldly calls out the name Ada Taylor. This girl was noticed because there aren't many in the kingdom with the power of disguise. But isn't that list supposed to be unseen by ordinary people? Rual reveals that he is a friend of the king, causing Taylor to internally criticize the king for his secrecy. However, Rual understands that Taylor is involved in this only to expose the small demon trafficking operation of the two culprits. She's collaborating with them on one hand while plotting to bring their deeds to light on the other. It's madness for Taylor to cooperate with those who murdered her family, aiming to use them for her revenge. She wants to use Rual's identity to add fuel to the fire, hoping he will exact a more brutal revenge. Rual successfully ignites Taylor's desire for vengeance. She will live with this fire and make revenge her life's guiding principle from now on. Her nightmare won't end until she personally kills those two. Taylor's family used to live a warm and happy life together. Her father, Charles Taylor, worked as an accountant for Allingham for a long time. However, he grew suspicious when the gold increased suddenly after the defeat of the Demon King. His suspicions led him to a shocking crime one evening. He smelled a strong, foul odor coming from the basement. Driven by curiosity, he ventured deeper and stopped at a luxurious room where Allingham and Wendell were discussing the lucrative trade of demon slaves, boasting about capturing over 100 of them. The little demons were trapped in the basement, waiting for Allingham's illegal transactions. Unable to endure this atrocity, he decided to save the children there. Waiting for Allingham to leave, he sneaked into the room and witnessed the children lying in pools of blood. Although not dead, they were unconscious and severely wounded. He quickly took them to a doctor, hoping for a miracle, but only one survived. Deciding to take the child home as the doctor didn't want to get involved, he discussed with his wife about reporting the matter to the royal family. He was prepared to be arrested for his unintended involvement in the crime if it meant saving the children. His wife was pained to see him like this, but there was no other way. The gold kept increasing, unbeknownst to him, indicating that this immoral act had been ongoing for a long time. He asked his wife to inform his workplace the next day that he was sick, buying him some time. Then, she should quickly flee with their child and wait until the culprits were apprehended. At that time, Taylor was just a child, joyfully greeting her father who had just returned home. He kissed her forehead as a goodbye, as he had urgent matters to attend to outside. He promised to return soon after she had a good night's sleep, saying he would be there when she woke up. But Taylor didn't know that this was the last time she would see her father before he rode off towards the royal palace. He had to reach the palace quickly before they discovered one child was missing, but life isn't always as one hopes. Allingham's henchmen intercepted him, tied him to a horse, and dragged him away. The next morning, Taylor was awakened by her mother's screams, only to find a box containing what was once her father. The words written on the box are still etched in her memory: traitors will be executed. All her memories of her father were overshadowed by that day. Rual clapped his hands in excitement, thrilled by her story. So, now is the time for them to take revenge on those two, right? Taylor was angry at Rual's enthusiasm for revenge, but it was more of a satisfaction for him. Useless people often say that revenge is pointless, but that's just because they do it foolishly. True revenge doesn't bring any